Today, we uncover the tragic final chapter of one of Europe's oldest and most illustrious royal bloodlines, the House of Palaiologos, the last imperial dynasty of the Byzantine Empire. This is the story of a family that once presided over the greatest Christian empire in the East, only to watch its world crumble stone by stone until nothing remained but echoes and ghosts. A dynasty that rose to reclaim a glorious past, but ultimately succumbed to internal strife, betrayal, and the relentless march of a new, formidable power. Our story begins in the 13th century, a time of hope and resurgence. In 1261, a brilliant general named Michael VIII Palaiologos achieved the impossible. He recaptured the legendary city of Constantinople from the Latin Crusaders, who had held it for over 50 years. And with that single act, he restored the Byzantine Empire. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as if the glory of ancient Rome, which Byzantium had always considered itself to be, was reborn. The golden mosaics of the Hagia Sophia gleamed once more under the rule of a true Roman emperor. The double-headed eagle, the symbol of the Palaiologan dynasty, flew proudly over the city's ancient walls. But behind the shining facades and golden domes, the seeds of destruction were already taking root. The empire Michael reclaimed was a shadow of its former self. It was broken, impoverished, and surrounded by enemies. The imperial court, instead of uniting, became a viper's nest of intrigue. Ambitious nobles constantly plotted against one another, vying for power and influence. Powerful landowners in the provinces, feeling neglected by the central government, began to act as independent rulers, often refusing to pay taxes or provide soldiers. One by one, the provinces rebelled or fell to foreign invaders. And while the empire was consumed by its internal arguments, a new power was rising in the east, watching and waiting. These were the Ottoman Turks, a tribe of warriors led by an unstoppable line of brilliant sultans. With each passing decade, their territory expanded, creeping closer and closer to the heart of the Byzantine world. They were organized, disciplined, and driven by a powerful sense of destiny. Against this rising tide, the fragmented and quarreling Byzantine Empire stood little chance. By the time Emperor John V Palaiologos ascended to the throne in the mid-14th century, the empire was in a state of terminal decline. What was once a vast, continent-spanning power was now reduced to little more than the city of Constantinople itself, a few scattered territories in Greece and some islands in the Aegean. John V was a desperate man ruling a dying state. In a last-ditch effort to save his realm, he embarked on a humiliating journey across Europe, visiting the courts of Western kings and even the Pope in Rome. He begged them for military aid, for a new crusade to push back the Ottoman advance. In his desperation, he made a monumental concession. He agreed to unite the Eastern Orthodox Church with the Roman Catholic Church under the authority of the Pope. For centuries, these two branches of Christianity had been bitter rivals. To a Byzantine emperor, this was the ultimate sacrifice, an abandonment of 1,000 years of religious tradition and identity. He hoped this act would secure a grand army from the West, but the aid never materialized in the way he'd hoped. He returned to Constantinople not as a savior who had secured the future of his people, but as a traitor in the eyes of many of his own subjects. The clergy denounced him, the populace felt betrayed, and his gamble had failed. This deep division only fueled the flames of the empire's self-destruction. The Palaiologos dynasty, instead of uniting against the common enemy, turned on itself in a series of devastating civil wars. It was a family tragedy of Shakespearean proportions, played out on the stage of a collapsing empire. John V, the emperor who had humbled himself before the West, found himself at war with his own son, Andronicus IV. Father fought son for the crumbling throne. The cycle of betrayal didn't end there. Andronicus IV, in turn, fought his own brother, Manuel II. And when Manuel's children grew up, they too would fight each other for what little remained of their inheritance. Each claimant to the throne declared himself the one true emperor, the rightful heir of Augustus and Constantine. Each one swore they were fighting to save Byzantium. But with every battle they fought, with every alliance they made with foreign powers, sometimes even with the Ottomans themselves, they were only hammering another nail into their empire's coffin. They drained the treasury, spilled the blood of their last loyal soldiers, and destroyed the very lands they claimed to rule. While the Byzantine princes were busy murdering one another for a crown that was losing its value by the day, The Ottoman sultans patiently and methodically closed the noose. They conquered the Balkans, surrounded the empire's remaining territories, and reduced the once mighty Byzantines to the status of vassals. The emperors of the Romans were forced to pay tribute to the Turkish sultan and even ride in his entourage during his campaigns. By the year 1453, the inevitable moment had arrived. The Byzantine Empire, which had once stretched from Italy to Persia, was now just one city, Constantinople. And it is here, in the final, desperate hours of this ancient empire, that its last ruler steps onto the stage of history. Constantine XI Palaiologos. He was a man born to wear the imperial purple, a direct descendant of a long line of emperors. Yet he was doomed by fate to be the last, to rule not an empire, but a single city under siege, destined to die defending its final walls. He knew the odds were impossible. Facing him was the massive army of Sultan Mehmed II, equipped with the most powerful cannons the world had ever seen. As those colossal cannons began to shatter the legendary thousand-year-old walls of Theodosius, turning fortifications that had repelled countless sieges into dust, Constantine XI refused to flee. His advisors begged him to escape, to live, and perhaps rally a new army from elsewhere. But he knew this was the end. On the final day of the assault, as Ottoman forces poured through the breaches in the walls, he stripped off his distinctive imperial regalia, the purple boots and eagle emblems that marked him as emperor. He did this so he could fight and die as a common soldier alongside his people. His final recorded words, shouted to the last of his loyal warriors, echo through history. "The city is fallen, but I live and die with my people." Then, sword in hand, he led the final, hopeless charge into the heart of the invading army. Eyewitnesses from both sides reported that the emperor fought with incredible bravery until he was completely overwhelmed, disappearing beneath a tidal wave of enemy soldiers. His body was never definitively found. With his death, the Roman Empire, an institution that had endured for over 2,000 years since its founding in Italy, finally came to an end. But the curse of the Palaiologos dynasty did not die with him on the walls of Constantinople. The surviving members of the imperial family were scattered across Europe. They became refugees, exiles carrying a famous name but possessing no power. Constantine's brothers, Thomas and Demetrios, continued their petty rivalries even in exile. Some descendants lived in obscurity and poverty in Venice or Rome. Others were hunted by the Ottomans, who sought to eliminate any potential claimant to the Byzantine throne. Some simply vanished from the historical record entirely. Over the centuries, a few individuals would emerge, claiming descent from this legendary bloodline, but none ever came close to regaining power. The family that once ruled a vast and magnificent empire, the bearers of the most prestigious title in Christendom, became nothing more than a ghost, a footnote in forgotten archives and genealogical charts. Their story serves as a chilling reminder that a great house can be destroyed not just by powerful invaders from the outside, but by its own internal demons, by betrayal, by civil war, and by the crushing weight of its own tragic destiny. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the fall of the Palaiologos dynasty. If you found this story compelling, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the dramatic pages of history. We'll see you next time.